The Morgan Dollar series, one of my favorites, and a lot of fun to have with a lot of different mint marks, right? But the one that we always struggle to find in quantity is that Southern Mint New Orleans. And tonight we have two of the last made special years. Tonight it is 1901 and 1902. It is a your choice opportunity, which means if you choose to buy one or the other, but you don't have to buy both to get the value of only $89.95 a coin here tonight. So the Morgan Dollar was made from 1878 all the way through 1904, brought back in 1921 for that 1 year, 28 years overall. And as I referenced, New Orleans made 1 year later and 1 year earlier, so 26 coins. Now the New Orleans Mint closed their doors in 1909, meaning we're towards the end of the line here with coinage. We also had this unique thing show up in history called the Pittman Act of 1918. Right in the middle of World War I, the U.S., in support of its allies, destroys or melts 60% of all the Morgan dollars ever made. We just don't know which ones. By mintage figure, we just don't know which ones. Well, now that we have the certification services out there for the last 35 years, we know what they're seeing and what they're not seeing. And uniquely enough, both of these two are the ones they're not seeing. But it's a logical conclusion, because if you're working this warehouse, this vault, this barn, right? And you start putting coins in the barn back in 1879, the first year of the New Orleans Mint was issued. You would not open the door and drop the bag right by the door and then trip over it every year for 26 years. You would open the door, walk all the way to the back, and drop the 1879 by the back. So when you open the door after its tenure, in 1909 when they closed the doors, again the Pittman Act was 1918, you're going to open the doors and bump into 1904s. You're going to bump into 1903s, 02s, 01s, right? These are from the last 4 years of issue inside of the series. And if you go backwards about 60% on New Orleans, you're going to get right into the middle of the 1880s. And uniquely enough, all of a sudden the population reports open up a little bit. It's not a perfect science, but the math and the story flows perfectly together, and it helps explain the difference as to why. Because if you look at either of these two coins, my competition have them in uncirculated condition at $175. Tonight, we're $89.95. If you look at the earlier issues by frequency, population reports, just to get you an idea of what's out there. The early to mid 1880s, you're seeing 151,000, 242,000, 238,000 coins certified by NGC alone, 83, 84, 85. Beautiful coins, all selling for the same price. And then you see these two, with a population of 45,959 and only 80,468 as of today. Significantly less than the others around it. So if you're going to put all 5 or 6 of these coins on the shelf, which one stands out? Well, of the 5 coins I mentioned, the 010 is the rarest population-wise, period. Fewest coins seen. 802 is right behind that. And that's what we look at when we're looking at the Morgan Dollar series in general, as a grouping. Because again, they did make 26 different New Orleans. We all want to have one from each mint. Which one should I get? Well, if they're all priced the same, they're not all the same. They just are not. Unless they were, like last year, they were all the same, right? They made 175,000 of all 5 of the Morgan Dollars for the 100th anniversary celebration. So today we know there's 175,000 of those Ds, those O's, and those CCs, etc., right? We know they're there. But this is 120 years ago, everyone. 120 years ago. And these coins look better than the coins last year. Oh, and by the way, when's the last time you've seen a 2021 New Orleans Morgan Dollar for under $200? Just talking out loud. These are 120-year-old specimens, gorgeous, like the day they were made, Yet it wasn't made yesterday. They were made 120 years ago, and we are under 100. $89.95 is at your choice, and they look this gorgeous still today. Luckily, a steward of some sort, he or she, put this aside, and it's been kept in a family ever since, and all of a sudden it shows up at some point to us collectors on its journey. But it's still there 120 years later, and they still look this gorgeous 120 years later. Now here's a tidbit. Many of you might have been doing this as long as I have, maybe longer. All right? Remember the treasury hoards of the early 1960s? If you want to have yourself a real treat, find an original red book, one of the old vintage red books, which is a guidebook of U.S. coins, right? And it's been kind of the Bible of mintage figures and the difference between a 010, an 020, and an 83.0 by mintage figure and value. Again, we can't buy from the red book, but they give us a rough value variance. If you look in the red book, the vintage red books before the treasury hoard, which is where some of the 010s came from, the 010 was actually rarer, a higher price than the 89 Carson City. So just got to say thank you to the few people that set aside a bag or two of the 010s in that New Orleans Mint vault that surfaced to the open market in the early 60s and gave us the ability to have this treasure still here today. I'm a big fan. I hope you are as well, but they don't last long ever. Guys, we got to put a 1-minute clock up. Down in the single digits on the 02 and only a couple more than that on the 01s. These are both very special, vintage. Now again, they're not the medallions or remakes that like many people made last year because of the hype of the brand new Morgan dollars. The 100th anniversary of the last, 1921 to 2021, right? And it was just a frenzy. It was a fun time to be a collector, bringing back the Morgan dollar. And the good news is they're bringing it back again next year. Stay tuned as they tell us, right? Well, there's nothing to stay tuned here. This is the real stuff. This is where they got the idea. These are the coins that circulated in 1901 and 1902. They were made in New Orleans, and somehow they survived 120 years to be able to be on our doorstep tonight to talk about. That's the fun part about collecting coins. What was the journey of this one? I do know, though, if you want to buy this from my competitors, they're at $1.75 each. Tonight, we are significantly under that, $89.95 as a your choice. You got to join me.